Stephen Wilkes has a really interesting story. He is a National Geographic photographer, but he also does fine art photography. He does a lot of urban prints, so he's not primarily a nature or wildlife photographer. And he came up with this idea to do these kind of prints, which I'll talk about in a minute, after he was assigned by Life magazine to take a picture of the cast of Romeo and Juliet, the most recent, or a fairly recent one from the late 90s, Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet with Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio. So he had the whole cast assembled and crew in this big ballroom, I think, and he started taking multiple shots of all the people, and he was going to do a big photo collage. He took a shot of Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio kind of in the center of the floor, and then was moving around, and he noticed that then he could see them, their reflection, in a big mirror on the other side of the room. And for that part of the shoot, he asked them to kiss. So they appear 2 times in this big photo collage, but they're doing different things. And this gave him the idea that he could sort of warp and bend time in one single image by compositing all these things together. So that gave him the idea to do these day to night photos. The first day to night photo was taken in New York City. There's a great sculpture walk in New York called the High Line, which many of you may have been to. He took this beautiful image of the High Line from, and it shows the High Line from sunrise to sunset. And how he does this is really interesting. He stays in one single place for 24 to 36 hours, and he shoots himself. He takes pictures of himself. He doesn't shoot himself. He doesn't set his camera on a time lapse or anything like that. He stands there and he takes photos, fairly often during those 24 to 36 hours. He may take up to 2,000 photos during that period. And then he goes back to his studio. There's a little picture of him in his office over there. He loads them all up on his computer, and he picks about 50, he said, that really have interesting moments in them or capture a certain time of that day and night that he wanted to capture, and then he composites them all into one image. So what you're seeing in something like this is, is it gannets? Yeah, gannets, on an island off of Scotland. So he stands there, and this bird might have, appeared in one of his shots, and that bird in another. And so he takes 50 of these things, and he starts to layer them on top of each other, edit pieces of each picture out, and composite them into one big final image. And they all go from day to night. So there's day is starting over here, nighttime is over there. This is really interesting to me. The more you look at these things, the more you see. This is just a little island off of the edge of Scotland, and there's civilization over there and people over there. But day to night in his photos don't always go from left to right or right to left. So sometimes it goes from bottom to top, sometimes it goes diagonally. So that's another really fun thing to look for as you're looking at these images. These are in 3, Jane was just asking this, a little technical question. These are in 3 panels, and they came to us with 2 National Geographic installers who helped us put them up on the wall and make sure they all fit perfectly. So even that is kind of a technical production. So he's done all kinds of day-to-night images, starting off in the High Line in New York. He's done the Vatican. He's done places all over the world. But for National Geographic and for this show, he picked 4 places where he was assured that he would get a whole lot of birds. So bird migratory spots. So there's this one in Scotland. There's a beautiful place in the Falkland Islands, which is right over there with albatrosses. There, we'll go in this room so we can keep talking. So we've got the Falkland Islands right there. The albatrosses. We've got flamingos in Africa, and we have close to our home here. We've got sandhill cranes in the Platte River, and so that one gives you a really good sense of how the transition from day to night can differ in each piece. The flamingo one, day starts at the bottom and night ends at the top, which is really cool. So there's stars at the top of that picture. There's some really interesting lightning in there. So those were the 4 main spots. He had to scout these spots, figure out what would be the best place to stand, figure out exactly where he was going to shoot. And he tells in this label over here a really funny story about the flamingo shoot. It's a highly touristed area, so he didn't want a bunch of tourists coming through there. And the tourists tend to go up and scare the flamingos so the flamingos will fly away and make a big cacophony. And he didn't want that either. So he had to build sort of a wall and protect his area where he was going to shoot from the tourists. He also hired 2 guards with guns to keep the tourists away and to keep the flamingos calm for the 24-hour period that he was out there. He also, in a couple of these, just tells really funny stories about being dive bombed by different birds, because he's in this place where he's got himself and an assistant, and then there are thousands and thousands of birds. He's in their territory, and so he has to really be careful with his own personal health and safety. And also he tries not to impact them too severely.
I consider myself a birder now, but believe me, when I started this project, I was the farthest thing from a birder. My name's Stephen Wilkes. I'm a photographer and a fine artist. I've been taking pictures for most of my adult life. Well, my first photographs were actually taken through a microscope when I was about 12 years old. I was very interested in science. When I take pictures, that's my language. And if I can touch you with my language, if I can share something with you that will inspire you to say, wow, I've never seen anything like that. I had no idea that the world looked like this. Then you begin to understand why we need to save this thing. So Day to Night came to me kind of in a unique way. I was asked by Life magazine in 1996 to photograph the cast and crew of Baz Luhrmann's film Romeo and Juliet. And at the time, David Hockney was doing these photo collages, and I was very inspired. And I thought, wow, maybe I'll do a collage. And so I ended up taking 250 images of the entire cast and crew. And in the center of the photograph, I've got Claire Danes and Leonardo embracing. And then as my camera panned to the right, and I'm taking multiple images, I see this huge mirror on the set. And in the mirror is Claire Danes and Leonardo reflecting. And for that one photograph, I asked them to kiss. And then I came back to New York and spent 2 weeks putting this massive image together by hand. And when I looked at it on my table, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I'm changing time in a photograph. And that concept stayed with me for almost 16 years until technology now allows me to do it in a way that's seamless. The first photograph I did Day to Night was the High Line. I looked at the High Line and I loved the fact that it was cool during lunchtime, but it was really kind of spooky at night. And I remember having this conversation with a photo editor saying, you know, it'd be really kind of cool if I could shoot north to south, day to night in one picture. And she was like, are you kidding me? Is that even possible? And I didn't know. I thought, well, we could try. And that's really where Day to Night came about. Why does a still photograph only have to be a single moment? Why can't we take multiple moments, hundreds of moments, and layer them into one single image? Day to Night started with me photographing New York City. It evolved from that into shooting the national parks, using people as a narrative. And then it went from the national parks to the Serengeti. That's the first time that I didn't have a human narrative, but I had a wildlife narrative in my picture. But doing birds was a whole nother ball game. If I'm shooting the Brooklyn Bridge, I take a highway and I'm there. When you go to a place like Bass Rock, you gotta fly to Edinburgh, Scotland, drive to a small town, take a boat with 9 cases of equipment, hike up 122 steps, treacherous steps, and there's guano everywhere. and you're slipping and sliding. You can't move very quickly. You have to be very deliberate the way you walk. To do these pictures, one of the greatest challenges is really getting an intimacy. Well, in order to do that, I have to become one of them. I am within a foot or two of their nests. That's a very, very challenging place to be, because these species, in particular the northern gannet, are very, very aggressive. They like to, attack you if you get too close to their babies. Understandable. And so we had some funny moments.
He died a good man. Killed on assignment while trying to film a day to night of gannets.
Left on a Scottish island forever.
Yes. In fact, they have the church here for me, but they forgot I'm Jewish.
We were in Steeplejason. We had this incredible morning where I had this spectacular rainbow rise out of the ocean and literally arc into my frame. It's so insanely beautiful, and it's so surreal that I think my assistant Chris has a little video. He goes, just so people believe this actually happened.
This is actually happening right now.
You're just like, oh my God. Each one of these pictures, there were moments. I was seeing something that was so extraordinary. I was so overwhelmed visually that I couldn't even speak or function. It was that incredible. It happened in Nebraska when all the sandhill cranes came in at sunset. I understand now why I'm a birder and why people do this and why they spend their lives, following these species, because it is one of the most extraordinary things I've ever witnessed.